Before we get started with this episode, I wanted to share with you that earlier this year, we started doing more of our podcasts as video podcasts. All of our audio and video episodes are available on our YouTube page. We'd love it if you'd check it out. And please, while you're there, be sure to subscribe to our channel. This way you get notified of new videos and new episodes that are posted. You can also find all of our videos on our website at MokenasFrontPorch.com or by searching Mokena's Front Porch on YouTube. Matt and I hope you enjoy this episode, and please be sure to share our podcast with a friend. Thank you all for meeting with me today. This is by far the biggest group that I've had to talk to. So after we rearranged the house here, I'm happy to sit down with all of you. And just for a little background, Patrick reached out to me after seeing some of the other candidate interviews. And I had not really reached out or done much with the 161 because it's not as big of a part of Mokena, but we're a section of that. And our attention has been more on the 159 as well as the village Mokena races and that. But this is an extremely important race. And as anybody that's been paying attention knows that there's been a lot going on in the 161 school district over the last year or so. And so I really appreciate the opportunity, you guys reaching out to us, to me and wanting to come down. I love seeing candidates that are wanting to talk. Transparency is extremely important, especially in these school board races where huge chunks of our tax dollars are going. And, more importantly than that, it's our children and our youth. Don't mind my cat.
All good.
So as we get started, why don't we want to go down and we'll start with Amy here and just introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and a little bit.
I'm Amy Berk. Thank you again so much for giving us this opportunity to talk out. This is my first term on the board. I'm running for re-election, so I've been on the board for 4 years. I'm a 16-year Frankfort resident, 16 years married to my husband. I have one beautiful daughter named Lyra who's in 8th grade, and decided that it was an opportunity to show her to step up when I first ran and want to continue my work.
All right. My name is Patrick Oliphant. This is my first time ever running for public office. I live in the Arbory Hills neighborhood right off of 193rd in LaGrange. My entire community is surrounded by Mokena, so my driver's license actually says Mokena. Okay. We have lived in the area for 10 years. My wife is from the New Lenox, Manhattan area. I grew up in Elsip, so this was a nice meet in the middle. We're both about 20 minutes away from our parents' house. It worked out very well that way. I have a 10-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son. Both attend Summit Hill schools. And I became involved in this, never really wanted to run for public office. I actually got involved during the school closing process. One of the top 2 reasons that they gave for closing the schools was facilities, operations, and maintenance costs. I am a local 399 stationary engineer and proud union member. And also now for the last 3 years, an engineering manager for ABM. I work with many different departments throughout the Chicagoland area, and we specialize in facilities, operations, and maintenance, right? Long-term cost projections, short-term repairs, and everything and anything in between. When that was stated that was a major cause, I said, I can actually do something here. I can really help. And I convinced my company to offer free services, free evaluation audits, to give long-term solutions and cost benefits that are much more accurate than the tools that I know they were using, because I've worked with that in the past. And when I presented my services for free, just as a citizen, it was sat on for about a month and a half. And then less than 5 days before they voted to close the schools, they had a board member tell me, thanks, but no thanks. Claim there was a conflict of interest, which there was absolutely none. And that really was upsetting to me because the math didn't add up, right? Why don't good leadership uses the resources that are available to them? And they were clearly not even entertaining this. And then they kind of railroaded it through. And the more questions I asked after that, and the more digging, the more the math didn't add up. So that's really what brought me into the limelight here.
Yeah, and I'm sure that was an issue a lot of people were passionate about. I know your board meetings were extremely contentious at the time, so we'll definitely spend some time hearing more about that.
Sure.
So, Melissa, how about you?
Hi, I'm Melissa Ryan. I've been in the district here for five years now. We moved the end of January 2020. So we came to the district, and my kids were in school. A few weeks later, COVID happened.
Yeah, what an interesting time to move into a district.
It really was.
Mm-hmm.
I never paid attention to local politics until that year, and that's kind of when I started going to the meetings and paying attention. And have ever since. I lucked out because I actually was able to get on the Rogus SEO before I even moved here.
What's that? Can you explain what that is?
So the SEO is basically PTO. It's a school community organization. And so we just raise funds and put on fun events, and I'm probably minimizing it. It's a lot of work, but it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
That's great.
And we get to give back to the school, the teachers, the students. So I got to do that. And since I was on the SEO, I was actually only allowed in the school because of that, which was, I was grateful for, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have stepped foot in the school probably until 2 years later.
Wow.
So it was a great opportunity. I've gotten to develop a lot of relationships in the school and the community. And I'm a self-employed CPA. I have 3 daughters. One's a freshman at East, one's in 5th grade at Hilda Walker, and then I have a 4-year-old who will start kindergarten fall of 2026. So I'll start all over again.
Wow.
So I'm very invested. Which is, another reason to get involved and step up and do this. So
Sure.
It's
Great. Yeah. All right, Ronnie, how about you?
I'm Ron Petrey. I've been in the community for about 17 years now. Back in 2020 with the COVID thing is when I kind of got involved in the community and in the district, and started going to board meetings, started asking questions, started standing up. I actually worked with Amy back at Eisenhower when we first started teaching together. So I reached out to her and started having conversations with her on the, when I saw that she was on the board. And then just kind of started getting involved. 2 years ago, I ran for to get on the board because of all the stuff that I've seen was happening. And so just missed it by 200 votes to be on the board. So I decided to continue to try to do it again because the things that have been happening need to stop. And so a little history about my kids is my first son, who is now a sophomore in college, he was in 1st grade at Mary Drew when they closed Mary Drew down. And then we had obviously Lincoln North that closed down not too far after that. And so, after North kind of shut down is when I kind of started what is going on in our community when we have a, community high school that goes down. We have a school that, houses 1st to 4th graders closed down in the community. Yeah. And then, COVID hit and then, got all these masks and, you have to wear a mask on a bus, and then, we're going to continue to do our masking. Oh, no, you're going to stay at home for a little bit, where 157C, everybody's at school, and so it's like, what's going on? And that's kind of where I kind of jumped in, So then my daughter graduated from Summit Hill during COVID. And then now my son is going to be graduating this year as an 8th grader as well. And so I started paying attention, started asking questions. And what I've kind of realized is parents' voice don't matter. So that's kind of thrown out. They'll have a hot topic. You'll come up, you'll talk about the hot topic. You'll talk to parents on the side. And then immediately at the end of the board meeting, they'll pass through. So it doesn't even matter. They don't even take the time to think about parents' voice. They don't allow the parents to even talk in the community about it. It's already done deal before it's even up there. It's signed, done, over with. And it's happened multiple times, and maybe we can get more into that as we go along. Yeah. So I live by Indian Trail, by Hickory Creek. I also lived over by Sycamore, which was over by Mary Drew. So I've been in 2 different houses in the community. Okay. And, the community was built on, the reason I moved here, the community was built on be able to walk your kids to school. Yeah. It's called Community School District because the community felt like they can bring their kids to school back and forth. They don't have to ride a bus. now we shot up our busing transportation costs because now we're busing kids all over the place. So
Great. Yeah, Adrian.
And I'm Adrian or Adrian Chavez, and I feel like the dinosaur of the group because my family, we've all been in this community for over 35 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I actually walked to Indian Trail, and I went to Indian Trail. I actually went to Arbory Hills in kindergarten, and that was back then. And then I went throughout. I went to Mary Drew when it was both Hilda Walker and Summit Hill within the Mary Drew building.
Wow.
And I went to Linkaway East and then Central. And back then it was 2 years at one and 2 years at the other.
That's correct.
And my brother and my sister were both at Linkaway East for their 4 years, and grew up in the area, loved the area. My family, being immigrants, they came from Mexico and Cuba. They understood that this was a really nice community to bring up their family, and so it was an outstanding experience. And so I was when I started having kids of my own, there was no better place, and I wanted to come back to. And my background is very different as far as from other candidates and from the existing board. I do not have an academic background. I'm not an academia at all. I wasn't even really a great student. However, I did find a really great path as a food service professional. So I worked with larger brands such as like PepsiCo, Simplot, which is a manufacturer for French fries for McDonald's. And I was an account executive where I would be working with every state except for Illinois in training and working with franchise owners and working with frontline teams at McDonald's and training them and teaching them. And now I'm a regional account manager for a company and major manufacturer of major ingredients for like sauces and dressings and things like that. But throughout my whole career, my emphasis has always been bringing different people with different backgrounds and different points of views together to a table to try to find, mutually beneficial paths forward where we could create a win-win-win situation. And I think, I started to try and get involved when I started going to these meetings, and I understood that there was such a disconnect between the board and the community and the parents that needed repairing, and I think needs a reset. And I was just hoping that I could be a voice for that, and I could be a conduit to bring people who have these contentious views, bring them to the table and understand we're all neighbors. We're all wanting the same success for our community. And for me, it's, yes, I have a lot of vested interest. I have 5 children. My daughter isn't in the district, but I have my son who was at Frankfort when they closed Frankfort Square School. So now he's at Indian Trail, which is cool for me because that was my alma mater. But I've also got 3 other kids in the chamber that are now going to be starting kindergarten, also at Rogus. But it's, for me, the way that I look at it is it's not only for my kids that I'm involved. For me, what's really important is the children that are around them as well, the community that is around them, that we build around them. So that's really my focus. And I just hope to bring kind of a voice of, unity and bringing the community together and finding common ground and understanding that how important community is, not only to the children, the students, the teachers, but also the businesses that are involved, the administrators as well, how they're looped in and how they're utilized. So I'm hoping to kind of bring some efficiency, bring better communication, kind of almost like a rebranding of Frankfort back to what it was. And it was a very welcoming community. And but that's me in a nutshell, I guess.
Great. Yeah. I want to come back to you, Amy, as a current board member. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing from the inside. What's the attitudes like? What is the atmosphere of the board? And are you able to get things done, or what's going on?
Yeah, spill the beans.
Let it all out.
Tell the tea. No. In all sincereness, so it's funny how we all said, people don't really, if everything's going good for their kid, they don't really pay attention. My issue was COVID. When I started, I never thought I'd be in a public position, and it was COVID that got me started in the meeting.
What part of, maybe explain, what part of COVID was it that got you involved?
So it was how it was impacting and affecting our students, and similar to what was what was expressed here, people's voices weren't being heard, whether they were in the 80% majority or 20%, minority of what they thought should be happening. Their voices weren't being heard. So I started a community group online, and I was getting input. I was attending meetings. Also at the time, so not speaking of current board or anything, but at the time before, I was elected. There was a lot of contention, even between board members. The meetings, there was public fighting in the meetings. So I'm watching this and going, you know what? I'm a pretty professional person. I believe in being able to have different values, such as we all do, and be able to come together and have those difficult conversations and do that. So that was also part of the reason that I ran. Up into the school closing, I think I made progress on that. My motto was growth with respect. I believe that we were able to talk through things. When it came time to the school closing, I asked for different options. I asked, what are our options? Can we we had Mary Drew that is sitting with 18 or so administrators there, and the other half was being rented by the Park District. How can we utilize this? I want to be approachable. I want to listen to the community. I do feel, when you're on the board, I feel that at some point you got there for the kids in the community. And whether you lose focus or not, you have to keep that and you have to work together. So I've done my research. I do believe that certain, obviously you can see the contention and how the voting played out. It was 5, a lot of times it's 5-2. School closings, 5-2 or 4-3.
So you voted against closing the schools.
I voted against closing the schools. And obviously fiscal responsibility, I'm responsible to the taxpayers and community. Absolutely. 100%.
And there was another vote as well that was against it? You said there was two
So
against.
there was a first vote. First vote was 4-3. And that was December of the previous year, not 2024, 2023. And then another vote, we tried to bring it up on the agenda again after parents were still asking, this process, we're seeing it happen too fast. And so we absolutely tried to put it on the agenda again. The board members did agree to put it on the agenda again. Because the process, a lot of people don't know, is you have the board president and the superintendent who create the agenda based on the input from the other board members. So we got it in there, but that was voted down at a time we had lost one board member who had moved.
We even John and Amy asked the board, are we voting to close schools before December? And was stated in the meeting, no, we're not going to close the schools before December.
Yeah, but they did 5 days before Christmas.
They did it 5 days before Christmas.
The problem, the issue I had as a sitting member was that when you're asked that in public and you say, no, that's not guaranteed. No, that's not what it's going to be. We're going to go through. And I was on the Buildings and Ground Commission too. Yeah. So we went through the steps of having the Buildings and Ground Commission and the data being presented. People were questioning a lot of the data in general. Myself, I talked to an accountant. I looked through the numbers. I toured the buildings. We had myself and a few others tour the buildings.
What did you question? What did you think didn't look right?
I questioned why the need to go through the process so quickly. That was my main question. I think the community, I think myself, had it been the right decision for the board, for the community, for the students, for our fiscal health, I would have had no problem voting in favor of doing that had the process been more understood.
And I think that's a crux of a lot of the contention that is happening with the community is they're not understanding that process that's taking place. And because of that, credibility goes out the window and you start just creating that space for division, right?
Do you think that if the school board had been more open about it, there would have been less contention and maybe we would have been a better place?
Yeah. Yes. Can I take this?
Yeah.
one? So I would agree with that wholeheartedly, right? Like there was less than 60 days from the time that it was presented, and it was presented on Halloween night of 2023 in a patch article when everybody was out. And it was snowing that day, for those that remember.
Yes, it was.
But a lot of people don't notice that, right? And what was first presented to the public officially on Halloween night was then voted on December 20th. And there were Building and Grounds Committee meetings. There were a lot of studies that were promised but weren't followed up on.
Yep.
And then in the time between the two votes that Amy very graciously just explained, from the closings in December to the second vote in February, a group of concerned citizens led by Lisa Brace, I helped as best as I possibly could, and a lot of people. I mean, it was a real homegrown community movement, mind you, in the middle of a polar vortex, and then with very heavy snow conditions. We went around collectively and got over 1,000 signatures of concerned citizens requesting a delay and an explanation of exactly what's happening, right? And in that February meeting, the superintendent spoke for about 30 to 40 minutes on many things and publicly discredited the effort, saying that he questioned the validity of those signatures.
Correct.
Thinking he accused us of all just forfeiting and counterfeiting, and you don't build trust that way, right? Like when you're in a public meeting with public officials and taxpayers who are wanting to be heard in a very legitimate manner, they just said, well, we think that you're all lying and that this doesn't matter. And in that meeting, even they blocked people from talking, right? Which is also not wonderful. But I think it's very important to emphasize at this juncture that while we were going door to door, and this was very personal for me, is that I would go door to door, explain what we were doing, and people time and again, now mind you, we are in the district of Lincoln Way North, where all of our kids would have gone to that school.
We've got
That's
that
the thing,
history
too. You have to have a sense of empathy for what this community has been through.
Thank you.
This community absolutely went through the closing of North. If you're looking at our own district of 161, that same community went through the closing of Mary Drew in 2012.
Yeah, and you're teeing this up perfectly because I would talk to people at their door and they would tell me, we love what you're doing. This is incredible, but I'm going to tell you, none of it's ever going to matter. Yeah. None of it's ever going to matter. They're never going to listen to you and they're just going to do what they want anyways, and that this is all a complete waste of time because people have already had a complete disconnect with local government. And what they were afraid of came into fruition in February, but I rejected that. I rejected it as being true. It was very upsetting to me. And it burned a fire in me to help change that narrative and restore a voice to people and restore accountability and the relationship of the taxpayer and the community in general with local government.
To help out with Patrick on that, I mean, multiple times parents ask, can we get current studies? Can we get, current studies on the enrollment? Because one of the things they talked about is the enrollment was going down.
Main reasons.
Right. And in February, obviously 8th, during the last meeting in February 8th, with curriculum meeting, we had, obviously, our enrollment all went up. So, I mean, we are asking, we have building, we have structures going on. Enrollment's going to go up, and they dismiss that, saying that only old people move into our community and they don't have kids. And we're like, no, new families will be coming in.
It was told that 75% of our tax base do not have students in the district.
We asked for how much money does the district have in reserves? We asked.
Is that realistic? 75%? I mean, that seems.
We don't know.
It's high.
Yeah.
I feel like
It's
that census is dated.
It's a high percentage either way. It's still a high percentage either way. But the thing with that, even in addition to what they're all saying, you look at the numbers. We had been prior to this current board and superintendent, we had not been in great shape financially, but we were prior to the school closing. Yes. We had done an excellent job in seeking out grants. We had done an excellent job in being responsible and heading towards the right direction. So there was no need to consolidate the schools in order to continue down that route or in order to pay down bonds. Yeah. When you looked at the numbers.
Which the major bond that we're talking about was a result tied into what Ronnie was bringing up.
Yeah.
There was a major investment put into the Mary Drew School shortly before they voted to close it. Yep. And then we as a taxpayer community were just left with the bill, still to this day with the bill. And we can cover more about that later. But that is the bond that she's talking about, was a school that remained closed for over a decade and then was voted to be reopened without any public conversation whatsoever. It was never an agenda item, never even discussed. And then right when they voted to close the schools, they just threw on the agenda to reopen the Mary Drew School.
It was the next agenda item was to reopen the Mary Drew School, and I tried to table it till we had more data and information because we had faculty from the two consolidated schools saying, if you're going to do this to us, could Mary Drew be a possibility where we start our new school together? and that was not considered in hard data or open discussion.
I mean, some of the things that we didn't even understand as a public, as a community member, being there for so many years, I didn't even really understand that we were still paying operation costs to keep Mary Drew open. So a school was closed, but we were spending $600,000 a year keeping the operation costs going when we thought, as a community, that the Frankfort Park District was paying the operation costs on the side that they were actually using.
They have an agreement for the half, and then the other half of the building is for admin.
So we're spending all this money
remodeled.
on a building that our kids don't even use. And so, like, when we were talking about closing schools, like, we're asking the question, why can't you just close down Mary Drew then? You know, just completely shut it and sell it then. And then that will give us enough money to cover these extraordinary costs that they came up with of our school buildings are falling apart and it's going to cost this much $1 million to build a roof and this and that, you know. And some of the questions we even had was like Indian Trail's roof was leaking for years, like 5-6 years they're telling us, and it's all falling apart. Well, what have you been doing for 5-6 years? Why haven't you been taking care of that? You know, like, so like we pay a lot of money in our community for our school district of 161. We believe in our school district of 161. We believe in our kids. And so people in our community have no issues paying those tax money, but they do have an issues when we don't know what's going on and it feels like there's lies coming to us. And then when you go ahead and you close down these schools and then you sell the school, and then on return, the Prayer Center tells us that the school is in the greatest shape it can ever be. All we have to do is slap up some paint on it to make it look where we want it paint-wise. That's another shot in our face when we're sitting there saying these schools are in great condition. And so there's another lie that came out of it.
Because the property was sold in July.
Yeah.
Is that
One
right?
of them, yeah. Arbery was.
Arbery. So talk about that. I mean, was everybody for that? I mean, what was the board sentiment like at that time?
I mean, I think after the school closings, nobody wants buildings to sit there. Mm-hmm. No community member wants them to sit there. So it was discussing the future. That went fairly quickly as well.
Yes, it did.
It was an open bid process, sealed open bid process. The Chicago Autism was the other bidder, and on that property. I think what constituents questioned was the amount that it was sold for. Yes. But as far as
1.75 million, something like that.
1.9
to be exact. Yeah.
And you feel it should have been more?
Well, I think that's what the constituents felt as well. You know, as a board member, we get, we go through the proper procedure and go out to get, okay, how does this is assessed? How is this, legally, what are we doing with that? Then we get the information, and then I did not vote to sell it.
What was the vote there? Do you remember?
The vote was 5-2.
5-2. Okay.
Yeah, the vote was 5-2.
I think the ongoing trend was that everything's been done super fast.
Yeah.
Right. And so one thing that I wanted to point out was part of the reason why it's been moving so fast is we've kind of had a current board that's kind of all running on the same kind of thought path. And I don't know if that's from top down or how that is happening. Amy would know more. But what we as a team have kind of been looking at, we're looking at each other and we're going, okay, we see things very differently. We're coming at these things from very different angles. What a board really should have is time to vet problems and try to check each other's blind spots, look at these issues from different angles. And another big part of the issue we keep on pointing out the community not trusting the board, but there's this sentiment that the board doesn't trust the community either, because they're not providing the information for the community to actually reflect on these decisions and take a look at, okay, what's the future going to look like with this? There's so many people that didn't know that their school was actually going to be closed. And if, in my opinion, and maybe it's a novice way, but if we're going to close a school in the center of a community, I would put a big banner on that school and say, hey, make sure you understand.
What was the communication when it was announced?
So there were public ads and public meetings in the buildings and grounds, and whatever legally minimally was required, such as ads in newspapers, the buildings and grounds, those were the only things. And this goes back to, and this stems from the issue with the full day kindergarten, the issue with communication. I think there's ways to be more proactive as far as like changing things in the future, ways to be super, super proactive in how we're communicating that to everyone. So yes, there was notification. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was legal. They did it
There was
legally by the
legal
skin of the teeth.
notification.
There's
Until
bare
the
minimum, and then there's like making sure you have apathy
Yeah.
for your community.
But I'd like to add a
Bare
little
minimum by the law, taken care of.
And
Yes.
I think
Check
as a
mark, turn
board
mark.
member, it's difficult because we do have closed session. You know, there's discussions that happen. Obviously, main stuff needs to absolutely happen in open discussion and forum. I know when there was an issue with the equity audit, I advocated for a town hall.
Yep.
And I know it's been mentioned in the community outreach meeting that town halls, things like that. It was
Yes.
mentioned by community members during the process as well.
Yes, it
That's
was.
one way, one thing they could have had felt that their voice was heard too.
So this is, a huge topic, and so very important. And I don't want to, move past it, but I want to say now, like, obviously, you guys have all been very passionate about it. The community's been very passionate. What's the next step? So you guys get in. How do you, one, keep this from happening?
Yeah.
Where are the schools at now? Is there a chance that somebody changes there? But what do you tell voters? What's the solution?
Amy, do you want to start, or I can jump in?
You can jump in first and then I'll
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think one thing that we're all very passionate about is we got to fix the basics here, right? Like, we all have the exact same goals of being fiscally accountable, transparency, doing everything to put the children first, which is all of our top goals.
But I think I want to point out, putting the children first is also about putting the values and the morals and the community feel around those kids. So these kids become neighbors. These kids become the
Yes.
kids who are helping
Yes.
the elderly or getting involved in the elderly. They become the DNA of our community. So that's
Right.
one way that I would look.
But we need to fix like the most basic things, which
Yeah.
is open communication, right? We have a text message system that we send to all the parents when a school bus is going to be late, right? Why not remind them of a school board meeting, right? Maybe some major topics. These are just some ideas that we're going to, kick around, but there are many avenues of communication that are just not being exercised. Another thing that we're going to do is anytime a community member comes to a school board meeting and has something to say, you listen to them with respect. You do not interrupt them. You do not laugh at them. You do not ridicule them while they're speaking. All of these things happen at the very last meeting and happen repeatedly.
Or close your eyes and fall asleep while they're talking.
Also correct. But it's important as elected officials to understand anybody with the courage to go up there and talk and has something to say is not alone. And this, for educators, say the same thing. If somebody has the courage to ask a question, 10 other people are thinking it.
Yeah.
They're just the ones with the courage. So whoever speaks at a meeting is representing a part of the community and should be taken seriously and with respect. I mean, that's just ground
It's never getting
level.
easy getting up in front of a group.
No,
Oh,
it's
no.
ground level stuff.
And you're never going to please 100% of your population,
No.
but you want to be able to make them to respect and understand the decisions that are being made.
How they're being made.
And how they're made.
That's what I was going to say. Not to get
No,
totally
please.
back to the school closings, but when I first heard that they were going to close the schools, my first thought process, especially doing what I do, was if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. So I went to the meeting where they presented the financial audit
Yes.
report, and it was clear that it wasn't a financial issue. I requested the last 5-year audits to be emailed to me. There was no financial issue. And then as you listen to the meetings, you found, the board members themselves were indicating there was no financial issue. We weren't saving money. We were going to be pouring money into Mary Drew. We weren't cutting the biggest expense, which was, employees as teachers, which not that we wanted anybody to lose their job. But again, it was all of these things were conflicting with it's a financial issue.
All staff was saved unless they were choosing to retire or do that, and they made that point, and that is very true.
So
that all staff was saved. However, if you go to recently, when you look at the numbers, when the small group gets to Hilda Walker, there's going to be a need for changes.
For fewer teachers, or
So I guess my point was that, then the question was, okay, well, then why are we really doing this? And there was never really an answer, and anybody who questioned it, we were just, the community was just annoying them.
Yes.
They had what they were going to do, and that was it. So it was a done deal, as it's already been said that, I feel like, and I'm not an expert, but I feel like, issues should be brought to the table, discussed in front of the community, and we should see the process. And we've pretty much figured out by now that once something's talked about at the board meeting, it's a done deal and it's happening. It's already.
But do you want to answer the question of what your things that you're going to implement? It's something important for the viewers to notice. The reason why there's 5 of us is that 4 of us are running for full 4-year terms. Amy, myself, Ronnie, and Adrian are running for 4-year terms. Melissa's running for a 2-year term that was vacated by one of the members who moved out of district, and she's running directly against an incumbent. But it's only those 2. So it's important for everybody at home watching this to realize that, the rest of us have a 12.5% chance statistically, right? Just by the numbers. Melissa has a 50% chance. So what type of things would you bring?
It is so important that you vote.
And we're
It's so important.
It is just so important that you vote.
And I consider Melissa our consigliere.
No doubt. No doubt. But you have such
pressure.
good experience and knowledge.
No. Let's hear it.
With fiscal accountability and all that. But what kind of things
what
would
kind
you
of
look to
changes
bring?
would you want to implicate?
I mean, my biggest thing is just the transparency and communication. Same thing, like I understand. I sat on an HOA board before. It's a completely different level. I get it. But the point is you can't please everyone. You're always going to have somebody who's unhappy with your decision. But I at least want people, even if they're unhappy with my decision, to know why I voted the way I voted and to see the whole process play out. And that's not happening. And just for the community members to know that we value their decision and that, they, God willing, we're there, sitting behind that table in a few months, that we understand they put us there and that we do owe them answers and information.
Yeah.
I mean, they are the taxpayers. It's their money. I just want to be there for the community, a voice for the parents, students, and teachers. Another kind of benefit I have with being on the SEO is that I'm in the school more than some parents. I get to see some stuff that some parents don't see, and where maybe things are lacking, where we could use more resources. And sometimes I feel maybe staff doesn't want to speak out. They don't feel comfortable. They don't want. They're afraid of repercussions or whatever, and I don't know how, but I'd like to see that change. I'd like them to feel like their voice matters. So.
Good point.
If I can add to that, when obviously I think we would all say we want to do what's best for our kids, such as we implemented full day kindergarten. I was not voting for that. I voted present, but there was a reason why. And again, it was because of the process with the staff. The staff was not notified. Even teachers that they were hiring, like new teachers that they were hiring, was not like, hey, this is might be happening. This is a heads up. We're going to go to full time. So it was not at all that I was against the idea of full day. It was, again, the process and communications. Parents had concerns with busing. Staff didn't know clearly what it was going to look like or aware of, what everything might entail.
So to add on to Amy, I spoke up at the board meeting for that when full day kindergarten came out. It was, nobody knew it was happening. So then they sent out the agenda 2 days, I think it's 2 days before the actual board meeting happened. So that Monday, the agenda comes out and it says full day kindergarten. And so the social media just blew up, and what is that going to look like? What is this? What is that? And so I stood up at the board meeting, not saying I'm all cool with full day kindergarten, but what is the plan? How are we going to bust the kids? Because right now, currently, in the old day was the kindergartners got picked up early and they got dropped off early, and it was just kindergarten buses that went around our community. And I'm like, how's this going to work out? And so their solution was, they could just ride the bus with the 1st and 4th graders, which brought a huge bunch of fears to parents.
Parents were scared. It's
because
new. It's
brand new, big change. And it's like, can you just get a plan? What is it going to look like in the school? How are you guys going to do PE? How are you guys going to do this? How are you going to do that? And that was the questions I had, is can we just table it for right now or just push it down a couple more months, give time? And that is one thing that I felt like we as a group, how we all came together was because we want parents to have a voice. And that voice means if parents are standing up and they're asking for time, that we give that time for them. Now, it might not be the next board meeting we might vote on it, but at least we get to talk about it in public. We get to hear their voice, and then we get to talk to each other to the public what we're feeling, and then we wait and we give it a month before we vote on it again.
Yep.
That is called time, and that gives people voice. Even if we disagree with it, at least we're all hearing it, we're hearing each other, and we move forward. You know, and it's interesting is that all of us were at board meetings and we were all talking to each other, and that's how we met with each other. You know, when you get a slate, people sometimes like, oh, you're all on a slate. Well, it's because we're all diverse and we all have different backgrounds and we all bring something.
Calling us a team or a coalition.
But we are more of a coalition.
But we're like a team now because we all kind of talk to each other and like, yeah, this is the reason why I want to run for it. This is the reason we want to run for it. And when you come to an election after November, it's very hard to get people to come out and vote again, right? And so it's better when you could take 5 people and try to run the campaign trail instead of trying to do it by yourself.
Well, and
that's where I think we all came together and like, yes, let's do together as a slate, but we also are individuals that we all bring something different to the table.
Yeah, and this emphasizes our greatest strength, right? Because we're up here talking about the importance of communication, taking people's different point of views into mind and listening to them and internalizing them and acting on them. Well, you know, I think it's safe to say that the majority of the viewers understand that talk is cheap, and that especially when it comes to candidates for political office, they'll say a lot of things and they won't actually follow up with it or put it into action. It's important to note we are a truly independent team. And by independent team, I mean bipartisan team. I am a registered Democrat running with a team of Republicans, and I could not be prouder to do it. No, it's important to know the reason why it's there. It's important to know because we walk the walk. Like we are not focusing on differences, and we all in our hearts believe that we have way more in common and way more beneficial to all of us and to the community, and that our different viewpoints, our different personal and professional experiences, and our ability to listen to each other, respect each other, respect the public, we're already doing those things. It's not something that we're just saying, once we get elected, we're going to do it. No, we're doing it now.
That's right.
And the public has shown us that they accept and are really thirsty for that, right? They're very hungry for it. Because even with something as simple as our community signs, you know, we're on back order. People want them in their yards. For a school board, like we can't keep up with the demand. And that is, I think, the first real sign, the canary in the coal mine, that change out of dignity and respect is on hand, and that we are walking the walk to bring that into the real world.
Yeah, and it's so like you had asked about what's the change that's going to need to happen, right? And I think we're all in agreement that the major change is that our community needs to feel empowered. And empowered on so many different levels that they can feel that they can be involved. They know that they will be listened to. They know that even... And I know with this group, even my bad ideas are going to be listened to, and at least either told, all right, Adrian, let's calm down with your ideas, or let's have something develop out of that. We need that exchange, and we need the community to feel that they can be part of that exchange and be part of the solutions and understand the problems, and therefore they're going to just have that much more of a vested interest, whether they have children in the district or not. Mm-hmm.
Talk about how you guys, or how the district can increase communication to the community.
I think number one, I just want to piggyback on one thing. We do have an idea of common sense and service leadership in common. We're going to serve the people. I've said that since day one. That's what I've signed up for. It's being available through emails. It's being available if somebody stops you in Target or wherever, and you're willing to talk and respond to that. I know we've talked about taking time on decisions, or if something does need to be made in a time frame, we're just saying this needs to be made in this time frame. So if you have any input, please get it out. I am part of the Community Outreach Committee. I serve along with another board member on that, and it's a great first step. And I think there's a lot of miscommunication of, what is it? Who's on it? How did the selection process go? What is it supposed to do? Is an extension of the board. And we had a really good meeting in terms of getting taxpayer involved, whether it be town halls, whether it be paper surveys at the district office that you sign out with an ID, QR codes for different things in our flyer. Looking at what goes into our flyer, the parents do get a 161 newsletter, which I think is a great thing if it's utilized for decision making correctly.
I'm sorry, and are the board meetings online? Are they available?
Yeah, they're on video. So if you go to the website, I feel like they're a little bit harder to find than before, but if you go to the website, you go to agendas, and you go to the past meetings, it'll give you the video link.
Yeah.
More and more school districts are going the direction of, just posting on YouTube. And because again, I mean, I find that, with ours, even our village in Mokena, you have to kind of go here to here to here instead of having a place that's a little more.
159 doesn't even record theirs, right? So that's kind
just
of
a live
crazy.
stream. Yeah.
We are lucky though, because Amy, being a current board member, you're good about, the agendas and the reminders for the meeting.
That's good,
and, then we have a couple other groups where they will post like the links for the meetings, because not every parent can make,
Correct.
7:00 at night. You got the kids' sports and everything. So it is nice they're online, but try to find them on the district website.
It could be very difficult.
So, we are fortunate that we have, not only Amy, but a couple other people who have like the group Facebook pages who stepped up and share that information to help make it easier.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think another thing that we can do is just be accessible, right? Like that's really, really important. Everybody kind of watching here and knows that we have baseball and softball opening day parades coming up. We have students in those parades. Why don't we take part in them? Why don't we just go meet with them? Things like Frankfort Fest, organizations and events going on in the summertime here in Mokena. Why don't we just get a booth and just be accessible so people come up and ask us questions?
Should be obligatory for a board.
You would think it's common sense, right? But those are different things that we can do. Not to kind of take away from it, but one thing that I plan on doing is every summer, go walking door to door just to say hello and see if people have questions, right? That idea came because, Adrian did help. We put together a petition drive, a legal one, for an advisory referendum in the November ballot to see if the public agreed with the school closing process, right? Without a reduction in the property tax levy rate, which there is a lot of back and forth between people saying, is that a legitimate thing? But they can all go back to your interview with Joe Kral to find out that the levy rate does affect taxpayers and homeowners, not just commercial businesses. But going door to door was a resumption of that January story that I told. Yeah. And people were really able to convey their concerns. I was able to alleviate concerns, answer some questions, and just something as simple as taking a month to go door to door. And you're not going to cover the whole district, but every year you can hit a different area. Yeah. Be accessible. That is just so critical to public service.
Well, the other thing I think us being really want the community to be back is us being at these events that these schools host. Like, just because, one of our kids go to the Indian Trail doesn't mean we can't, as a board member, go to Rogus or go to Summit Hill and be in an event over there. A board member being at these different events and doing out throughout a year, is a good thing to show that also the community that, hey, we're around, we're listening to you, we're here, we're involved, and we're celebrating the success that we have.
Not just showing up at election
Not just showing up at election time and, oh yes, my life is so difficult. Well, all our lives are difficult. We all have kids. But if we make time out of the time to do that, it's a great thing. And the reason I know that, because one of the things the Frankfort mayor, Mr. O'Keefe, has always done, I've seen him all the time. I go walking down Frankfort and I see him all the time. And that is just a cool thing. You see the mayor there. And it's like, it just makes it, all right, cool, the mayor. And I talk to him for 2 minutes and that's it.
Mayor
and
Ogle. Just so the recording.
Sorry, yeah, okay, my bad. Ogle.
Along those lines, there's been a suggestion made, and I haven't even mentioned this yet, of like once the board members rotating what even school events they go to, like having a calendar of events that rotate, and so you're seeing some representation in that manner.
I think my idea is a little more off the wall, but I think even now with technology speeding forward, we could even look into even having like a community app that everybody can kind of have and be able to be informed of what's going on or input.
There was an existing app that's not utilized.
There we go. Something that I'm throwing at the wall, and I haven't even vetted it with them, but even having like office hours of the board. Because then some people may feel intimidated going to these board meetings and then speaking in front of everybody. But if they can have, a known time where they can go and be heard as well and voice their opinion or their ideas, I think that's a great step. And then another thing, we've talked a lot about also school events and us being present at that and the board being present at those. But we also have some really great businesses inside of our community as well. That if we had like how 157 has like Restaurant Week, right? Frankfort has that. If we had that, we have some really great businesses as well that our community can feel like they're participating in and being able to be involved and have their kids attend those. And they might not even have students in the schools, but now we're developing a community environment that is welcoming, that is thinking not solely in one direction of only students and only administrative ideas, but we're bringing in our businesses and we're bringing in our seniors. That's incredibly important to me. My grandmother still lives in this area, and she lives in one of the senior livings. And for me, there's nothing better than touching base with our older community as well, and having our kids realize that these are just untapped, resources as well. And I think that those are the kinds of ideas that we want to be kind of stirring up.
I want to hear a little bit about the relationship between the administration and the board. Is it a good relationship? Could it be better?
Yeah, this is a good one. Amy?
I am going to start by widening the definition of admin, meaning like our administration, building wise, all of our administrators. We have some excellent administrative staff. I mean, we have our principals going out in the lot during, pickup and drop off. They care about their kids. We truly see that, and we truly value that. As far as I know, one hot button topic, I don't know if you guys want to
Go for it. Roll it.
the other, has been recently the approval of the extension of the superintendent's contract.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe a little bit on that. It's up for renewal.
So it was
Amy?
renewed.
Oh.
It was up to 2027. It was renewed to 2028.
2 years left to go.
Okay.
With a brand new board coming
With
in
a
April.
retirement in mind. Yeah. So that was renewed, and residents were not happy with the monetary component of it.
Well, I think one of the biggest things they're upset about is that the superintendent has only been here for how many years?
4 years.
4 years. And he's getting paid more than a superintendent that is at District 210, Lincoln Way School District 210, who's been there his whole career. That becomes hard.
And the timing.
The timing
keep in
of
mind,
it too.
context matters here. The public that already feels a disconnect with local government, that already went through the Lincoln Way North debacle, right? And then had a school closed vote 5 days before Christmas, but just over 2 months after it was first brought out there. A couple of months before, the talk of a student resource officer, right? Like a safety resource officer, SRO, was brought to the table. And the board president very specifically said something as serious and important as an SRO officer is too important for this board to decide on. We're going to table it for the next board. Makes perfect sense, right?
Yes.
But then the extension of a superintendent's contract that has 2 years left to go, which throws a Cadillac of benefits on for an additional year. I mean, that's the public. It's been released to the public. The public sentiment is it's a Cadillac extension, right? That was not too important for a new board. That had to happen. And one of the most common reasons given by 3 of the board members that voted to close the schools was he met his goals, but then he did such an exemplary job with the school closing process by designing, implementing it, right, and taking complete direction from the board. They shielded that. But his service to the community during that process was poignantly a reason why he got that extension with 2 years already left. And people that have a mistrust for local government, that have a mistrust on why their community center was closed without real justification. I live in Arbery. That affected me directly. I met so many community members just walking my kids to and from school, and that was taken away in reasons that were never really justified and are kind of proven by actions not to be as legit as they were presented. That's why people are very upset about the contract extension.
I don't want it to be lost. From my point of view, in my opinion, he does a fantastic job for what he's being asked to do. Yes. And I think that's something that I don't want anybody to get lost in the mix. I think he's a sharp guy. Yeah, you're right. I think he tries very hard. I think he's very involved. But
in terms of financials around.
But back to your question, any of the direction that has been given is from the board. It's not the superintendent making decisions for our community. It's the existing board that is driving any decisions to be made.
The superintendent has 7 bosses.
Right.
I mean, technically, superintendent has 7. That's not easy. I've had a great working relationship. My number one changed with the process of how the full day kindergarten went on, and I've said that to admin. So admin and the board have a good working relationship. Absolutely. But I said the number one change was when the process of how the full day kindergarten was implemented
Just
after
to
the first
piggyback.
contract extension.
Just to throw something else in
Thank
there,
you
though,
for that.
and something
First contract
that I've been kind of beating my drum about is the board right now also has people with administrative backgrounds on it, right? And you also got candidates that are running that only have administrative backgrounds on it. So when you get a board that's full of people with that kind of mindset, those decisions are going to be made faster because they're all thinking on the same kind of wavelength. I'm not saying that they all have the same exact thought patterns or values or anything like that, but there is a different set of approaches to any issues, right? And so that's what I'm hoping what we could bring to the board is that we're going to have different points of views covered. It's not going to be administrative people.
Yep.
It's not going to be
Good point.
teachers. It's people who also have, business backgrounds, who have, maybe they weren't always, fantastic students or anything like that. But hey, most of our population isn't only honor roll. It isn't only those.
Well, this is conducted school audits. Like that's something that none of us can bring to the
Yeah.
table. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel
I've
like
been
that's-
told since the first time I ran, because the prior board had an accountant on it. Like,
Yeah.
we need another accountant on it. We need another accountant on it. We need another accountant on it. Not to say that
she is.
board had an excellent financial record at the time, but I've gotten that input,
Yeah.
which is why I'm so proud of this. And not only that, if I can just point out, we represent every different area of the district.
Yep. Checks
Because
and
right
balances
now
there.
there's a lot of Indian Trail representation, but right now we represent every area of the district
Yeah.
between all of us, which I think is crucial.
Yeah.
So, like, going back to the superintendent contract extension, I stood up, asked for time. I said, let the next board deal with the contract extensions because he's got 2 years on it already. It has nothing to do with what he's done, this. It's just give it time for the community. And then, again, just like I anticipated, that the vote was going to be done because they put it on the ballot, they put it on the agenda, and I knew as soon as they put it on the agenda, it was already passed. And that backdoor stuff that keeps happening needs to stop. Like,
So-
the public needs to know what is going on, and then give the public, allow the public to have time before a vote is done.
Yeah.
Like, that has to happen. The backdoor stuff, I'm done with. I can't do this anymore.
One of the other big issues that I saw was important in the district was the change in transportation.
43%.
It switched over from 210 providing bus service to now you have your
Safe
own or
route.
a contracted bus service, right? So,
But not
has that been a good decision? How did that happen,
So-
and what's the story there?
I can explain how we got to that decision, and then
Okay.
they can go on if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
No. So Lincoln Way 210, obviously, I mean, they're on double schedule buses to begin with, like A and B routes for East. We were in communication with them all the time. They said, hey, we're not going to be able to handle your load, or the price. If we can't handle your load, the price is going to increase. So we went out to bid properly. When we had the current company come and speak to us, they had a very experienced manager, very, very like seasoned 20, 30 plus year, plus person running this. And then there was some issues the first year. Okay. Second year comes in, there's all things kind of happened within their company. That person was no longer there. So the person who came in that we thought we were getting was no longer there. That's issue number one.
We call that the closer.
Then there was a question about the additional routes after the consolidation, as well if that played a role. I think their management was a bigger role in it. So we tried to communicate with them. On our end, I asked, because we also had issues with changed bus stops. So that was another separate issue
Whole nother
that I
plan.
felt the district could deal with more. So the reason we got to the vote was it was saving us money, and it sounded, I voted for that company because it sounded as though in the details they gave us sounded great. And for the first year, couple hiccups, second year, complete
What kind of
mess.
hiccups were you seeing?
Well, in the first year, the normal lags, but this year, I mean, we're having bus stops missed, bus stops late, problems with
Drivers.
lack of drivers, yeah. So they can go on more, but I wanted to explain how we got to that. And we are the status currently is we held money payment from them, and we got some of that money back, so that's a good thing. Since the service was nowhere near 100%. The first part of this year through November. And then we are currently going out for bid.
That was a 3-year contract, is that right?
Oh, I don't remember at the time. I'd have to look at it.
But you're now looking
But we
at
now
a
have noticed,
potential. Is there any thought of going back to 210 service, or is that?
I don't know if it's even
Not
a
an option.
possibility at this
Okay.
point.
Any other comments? Anybody else want to talk about?
Yeah, I
the
mean, we don't want to
issue?
talk all day about this, right? But let's play the hits.
He
and
has a
issues
good
here.
personal story.
Well,
that
you know,
really
yeah.
upsets you.
I think
And
it's-
it was after a couple of months too.
Yeah.
On top of that,
Sure
so,
was.
of issues.
To lay the groundwork, in the November 2023 Building Grounds meeting, it was mentioned that there would be a study done on what this would look like, and the board president legitimately said, well, we already bused this many kids, we can bus more. Like, it's not a problem, right? Remember that. So then we get into the brand new format here. Bus stops are being missed. There was a bus of kindergartners for hours left on the bus unaccounted for. Bus shortages of bus drivers that could have been very foreseen, right?
Yep.
Asking the right questions to see what the status is. But when you had to jam everything through in such a short time, these are things that get missed.
Yep.
The first week of school, bus driver comes by. I ask where my son is. He's like, oh, he's on the wrong bus. He must not be on this bus because he's not here. I'm like, what do you mean he's not here? Thankfully, he got off with a 4th grader and was probably about released 4 blocks away. And then after a little bit of time, comes walking up a hill, and they were fine, right? But that's a little bit of terror, right?
It's a
but
lot
the
of
real,
terror.
it sure is. I'm
Yeah.
trying to be nice.
Gets even
5 minutes
Gets
is
even
3
no. Don't
hours.
be nice. Don't be nice. That's the problem.
That's the nice one. The not so nice one.
There you go.
My daughter, 5th grade. Her entire bus was taken to Manteno. They got on I-80. They went way past where we lived, across the district. Get on the expressway. The bus driver's like, yeah, we're almost there. And the kids are like, we aren't home. Like, we don't live here. Thankfully, some kids had phones. My daughter had a gizmo. We were able to kind of track where they were. The district it was playing full reaction. It was a nightmare.
What was the explanation there?
New bus driver, substitute bus driver. And then in the end, took them back to Lincoln Way North, which at least was something. But we're talking hours of not knowing where your children are in a day and age where accountability and danger is around every corner. And it was horrifying. And it was a lot of parents that dealt with this. And I want to take the moment to give so much praise to the administrators in the school. The principal, Ms. Carol Hilda Walker, did such an amazing job taking bullets 8 ways from Tuesday, not literally, figuratively, but like trying to answer these phone calls, keep parents calm, tell them that they're doing everything that they can, and wearing the stress of it, right? Yeah. During this entire process, good to plug here that the administration, like the administrators of each school have done such a good job. Like they got to have backaches from
They were
carrying the
saying
weight
they're
of
to
this.
like 5 or 6 at night. I mean,
They
to
did
say
such
the
an
least.
incredible job, but what a terrifying situation, right? To not have any communication and contact. My daughter's gizmo was dead. So thankfully the neighbor's kid, we were able to find out through tracking their phone. That's how we knew they were in Manteno, right? Craziness. And all of this was seemingly avoidable.
Are there any other big issues that you all maybe as candidates see as important coming up in the school district?
Student growth.
Yeah.
Student growth.
That's a big hot topic.
Student growth. Academics. Excellence. Getting our. I know at one point.
Talk about student growth. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, student growth. Okay, so we know our staff and are fabulous. My daughter has personally had nothing but excellent experiences within this district. We recognize standardized tests are just a snapshot. However, it's what you're judged on. It's what you're judged on. It's what you're evaluated on. It's what our non-student holding taxpayers look at. We want to be competitive. We want people to move here for that. And we saw test scores obviously dip post-COVID, but prior, historically, we had been leading neighboring districts in test scores. Now we are in, 40th-ish percentile and stuff, 30. You can look at the numbers as well. But that is something that we need to help all work together and figure out. how to improve those growth on those standardized test scores, which our students are judged on.
Yeah, and to do so, let's utilize the best resources we have, our educators, right?
Yep.
Perform some field level studies. Let's see what's working, what's not working in the classrooms instead of getting directives from 3 levels up, right? I can tell you from personal experience, the educators that have worked with my children have done such an amazing job. I have seen so much growth, especially in areas where they had challenges, right? The teachers go out of their way. They're empathetic. They're very professional. They work with them, not around them. It's very important. But let's get their opinions more. If we don't trust them to make good policy decisions or recommendations, good policy recommendations, because we don't think that they're qualified to do that, then why are they qualified to teach our children? It's just, this is common sense resource use that, we can emphasize to grow even better than where we are today.
So, I mean, one of the things that just for the previous years, I want to put it out there that we've developed new curriculums, and we have a tracking system and then after the curriculum gets so old, we get a new curriculum to come in. But what we're still seeing is test scores not being high enough. So are the curriculum that we have currently, is it doing enough? So putting together teams to figure out ways we can resource that additional to the curriculum that we have to help test scores get even higher. Are we tracking our kids correctly? Are we giving our kids the opportunity to get an accelerated more or to be able to move up into that summit program? What can we do with that? So, to growth needs to move currently, and we need to kind of look at that, and so we can be more competitive with the surrounding school districts. And we all know this. I mean, you probably have talked to the Mokena school district, and what is the nearest school that we always look at is 157C. Their test scores seem to be always higher than all the other ones coming in this area come in. So what are they doing that's so much more, which is better, or what are they doing to get their test scores so much higher? And what can we do to implement in the current curriculum we have right now? So those are, we need to move that bar. We need to keep moving that needle.
Just for reference, so our students take the Illinois Assessment Readiness. That's this statewide test, and then they also take MAP tests for our individual information. Mm-hmm. So there's 2 scores that they're evaluated or assessed on. And it's been suggested that we possibly look at a task force with neighboring schools to address that, to look at look at our curriculum and say, well, how much exposure, like I know, for example, the students that jump, I speak from personal experience with my own child, student that jumps to accelerated, her growth was simply just from being exposed to the material at the accelerated level. Her growth was from that. So looking at, are we teaching, is something on the test that we're not teaching till later in the curriculum or after? Not teaching to the test by any means, but just looking at, is there those little tweaks that we can adjust?
I'm coming from a completely left-wing kind of approach to it as well. And kind of like, because I entrust you guys and I entrust our teachers to look at the scores. And for me, the biggest things are like our values that we're putting forth for our children, because not every child is going to be on a roll and advanced programs. Yeah, right. So we need to also encourage entrepreneurship and free thought. And I'm in the camp of where, I grew up where ADD wasn't even really recognized. So it was, kind of brushed away and not really understood or approached.
How do you encourage those things?
One, entrusting our community to be participating in it, feeling that they can be comfortable enough to bring forward their children, and also empowering these kids to also be able to, not that they don't now, can speak directly to their teachers, but I think we need more input from areas, like I've mentioned, outside of academia, outside of the administrative side. Most of our kids are not going to be in schools forever. They're going to go out into the wild and either start their own businesses or jump into different industries, and they need to know that that's also available to them. They can take those paths.
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that, because I feel like, my son's in 6th grade, and you have less and less of that kind of the community coming in, or people coming in and talking to them, and that idea of, we live in an extremely blue collar area. I mean, and I got to talk to some of the 210 candidates about how they're doing more to support students that do want to go into the trades. But it's interesting to think how you pull that even down a little earlier and, promote entrepreneurship or ideas like that.
I think kids need to have those ideas. Like, we need to kind of, if we can empower the community, we can, I think, then ask of the community to participate more. And so people who may not have kids in the district, we can have kind of a career day. And these kids can also see that there are paths forward no matter what your interests are.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And you can, go ahead.
I think at the junior high especially, they do career day at Walker and they do career day at the junior high. And we need to get, but like you said, it's so crucial that we can get those real life examples in there and get those parents to volunteer and do that. Yeah. With my own job, we have our kids sign up for the plumbing, electrician, pipe fitters, all those come to our school and talk to them.
I love that stuff. I love the trade, so that makes me happy.
It's an excellent opportunity.
Well, keep building on our STEM program too, as well. One of the things that was started already in the district, which I think every one of us kind of like that. Some of the direction went was the STEM program, and now they have labs. They're developing labs in Hilda Walker as well as Summit Hill, and continue to build on that as well. Will help. Our goal. The goal is for kids to graduate and be like Adrian and come back to our community and start a family. Yeah. That is the goal.
Better than Adrian.
But there was a program that Adrian brought up when we were talking that, it actually is employed in the school that she teaches at professionally. My nephew was in it, in that district, right? But like a dual language program where they start, in kindergarten, there's a group of students that sign up and they're eligible for it. And everything is taught in Spanish and English, even if they don't understand Spanish. And the growth rate, and the reason why I even know this is because I'm involved with my family, right? The growth rate is it dips below the median. In the first year or two, and around year 3, it levels out, and then from year 4 on, it explodes in terms of success, academic success, for the students who are in that program, right? And that's something Adrian brought up, and I was a little upset that I had not thought of it because I had family experience with it.
No,
but that's just an
159
example.
actually had a dual language that my son was part of, and they discontinued. I think it was his 4th grade year. Ironically enough, you say that. But it was very upsetting for a lot of the parents that were in it. And the idea of having these extras or these additional items that, we're introducing in schools that just enrich them a little more, these enrichment programs.
So bringing back some of the things we've talked about was, what would be a better outlook of it? Well, is taking the money that our taxpayers giving and then strategically having common sense and putting it back to the kids and put it back into our schools that are good things. Like we don't need a solar farm put in on the ground. What we need to do is take the money that we have and invest it into programs that our kids can grow in.
Or
and that's
that our teachers
correct.
Can use, clubs
or
like
resources
this
that our teachers that need.
That the teachers can sponsor and
to encapsulate this concept, right? This is something that I bring to the table with my professional experiences. I'm a United States Green Building Council lead green associate, right? And the core concept of that, and it's a professional thing in my industry, but it applies everywhere, is that there's a triple bottom line. You have what's good for financially, what's good for the community within that building, and then what's good for the neighborhood, right? Like in terms of health, economic growth, all overall betterment. And this process has survived multiple different types of governmental entities, and it continues to be successful because the core value is making the entire community better while being financially and fiscally responsible. So it's in everybody's interest to pursue this. And that's something that we can bring on day one, which encapsulates all of these different ideas that we brought up. All of them.
I want to... go ahead, Ronnie.
I had to...
Yeah, I'm actually going to wrap it. So what I want to do is we'll give you guys each an opportunity to just quickly say...
Thank you, Israel.
Why you're the best candidate, why people should vote for you. And Ronnie, we can start with you.
We'll start with Adrian and work our way back down.
I don't know if I'm the best candidate. I couldn't say that. I
think you are.
Yeah, thank you.
I kind of like you still.
I just think that we need a diverse group that could cover more bases and also be welcoming to the voices that do kind of fall in between the cracks. I think that I'm a good candidate because I feel that I would be the most welcoming, and I feel like I have a calming kind of approach to problems. I like to be inclusive of people and making sure that everybody's heard. Like Amy said, you can't make everybody happy, but at the very least, we can help people understand that they are part of the process. Something we touched on.
Yes.
This election is extremely important. Yeah, everybody votes and voted in November, but this is your local government. Your voice is even louder. You're a smaller pool. So I think engagement is huge. I think I just offer a different perspective. I think I offer a challenging perspective. Somebody who's going to be a voice for, the harebrained ideas. And also, I'm very much community driven, being that I've grown up here and also that I'm planning on raising my children here. I understand the value of community and encouraging great character. And, I think we could all use a little bit of that. And I consider, because I'm outside of the bubble of academia, I also take a look at technology and how fast we're moving and how we're communicating now. We talked about messaging via Facebook and things like that, but we're developing way past that. And I think that we just need people from outside of the bubble to offer that kind of perspective, but also be respectful with other people who have different views and different approaches to problems. That's what I feel that I would bring to the table.
I think I'm a good candidate because I've been in the community for about 17 years. I've stood up and listened to community members in board meetings. I stood up and asked for more time. So one of the biggest things that I'm about is community. I have a 3-pillar system based on what I've run, and that's who I am. Community is number 1, academics is number 2, and excellence is number 3. And the reason I put excellence down is to hold everybody accountable. We have to start becoming a board that holds our administration accountable, as well as holding our students accountable, as well as holding our community members accountable. Mm-hmm. And as we hold each other accountable, even each other on the board holding each other accountable, we grow as a community. Our community is phenomenal. This is the reason why I've been here. Moved to 2 different houses. I didn't want to leave the community because I love the community. I coach in the community. I've coached in this community for over 22 years in all different sports. I believe in giving back, and I think that's how you grow. You grow because our community is about the schools. We grow it there. This is our town hall is a board. And so therefore you have to listen to community. And if the community's crying, then we need to listen to that, and we need to bridge a gap, and we can build it together. And we want our kids everybody in the community wants their kids to be more successful. And I know we all want that here too. Everybody in the community wants us to be able to spend the money wisely. And I know everybody on this board wants that as well. And so for me as a candidate, I will be there. I am here to listen. I'm here to do exactly what I tend to do is who I am. I am a person, if anybody talks to me, they know is who I am is right on my sleeve. So, and that's exactly what I'm going to be for our community.
I really just love our community. I love our schools. We have great staff, great teachers. Teachers, front office, the whole staff. I have nothing but great things to say. And I want our board to match that. And I would like all of those members to feel about their school board the way I feel about all of them.
Yes.
I would hope that my background in finance can bring something to the table, and just my involvement in the community. So,
yeah, I think I've got an established track record of fighting for the community. I haven't been volunteering in the community as long as Melissa has, but over the last year, I have been trying to be a voice for the people, a voice of reason. We talked about the petition drive in January, and then we touched on the advisory referendum. But, it's important to notice that we can say definitively now that just under 87% of the public disagreed with the school closing process because of the work that we put in going door to door in the summer, getting the advisory referendum, which is just a legal, opinion poll, on the November ballot so that we can get a real temperature of what the community feels.
Wanted, yep.
And we've fought for that. We have shown that we can represent the voice of the people, but this isn't just to burn it down. This is a rebuild, right? And I don't mean that we're burning anything down, but it's important because there's a perception of that we're just, angry pitchforks. But in my line of business, I oversee 150 union members, team members. I very much so bring an air of accountability while also being very positive, right? Like it's what I do professionally is I create an atmosphere of upward mobility, support. You must challenge, but support, right? Like we can incorporate these things. I've created multi-million-dollar operational and capital budgets. I have brought sustainability to buildings. I understand the mechanical and financial aspects of success. And it's just one avenue that I can help contribute to make my community even better, which is so critical because I do absolutely love this community. I have no plans of leaving. And it's been so good to me that I think, especially people not whatever, but our age, we have been the beneficiaries our whole lives of people in local institutions holding it up and giving us the opportunities that we have to grow and to develop. And now it's our turn to give back. And I really believe and I'm passionate about that.
I think a strength of our community is the fierceness with which we fight for our kids and for each other. We are absolutely there for each other and our kids. And I want to continue to fight for that and represent that with respect and professionalism.
Yep.
I have a proven record of listening to the people, fiscal responsibility, and working relationships with people that don't always see eye to eye. I would love to continue that work and help our students grow.
This is awesome. Thank you very much for taking time.
Thank you
guys,
for the opportunity.
You guys have the best shirts I've seen this election so far.
All right.
And I wanted to say it. I told Patrick when we talked, I want to extend the same opportunity for any of the other candidates for 161.
Yep.
As I said, I didn't seek you guys out. Thank you very much for seeking me out and this opportunity out. So I want to make sure I offered.
We have
for any
Mokena
other
residents
candidates.
in our district, Terra
Of
Hills,
course.
man.
Yeah,
They're
of
great.
course.
One of my community members, his daughter, came up from this area, and now she's got a full scholarship to play softball at Loyola. That is Mokena's pride, the Hickey family.
We'll show the map so everybody knows, understands where the district is, because it zigzags in a little bit into Mokena here. But again, thank you very much for taking time to talk to me. There's 10 total candidates running for this race, 2 for the 2-year and 8 for the 4-year. So make sure you pay attention, listen. I really, again, appreciate getting their message out, having an opportunity for you all to meet them. And be sure to vote. Early voting starts March 17th, and Election Day is April 1st.